A pre-election budget, this moment as much about the politics as the economics. This may be the last chance to shift the dial for a Conservative Party 20 points behind in the polls. A huge opportunity for this Chancellor, and one matched with big expectations from his party and the public.
We can now help families not just with temporary cost of living support, but with permanent cuts in taxation.
But the only big cut in this budget was 2 percentage points off national insurance. This a repeat of Mr Hunt's big giveaway last November that failed to move the polls. And his other more modest move, changes to child benefit to help higher earners.
From this April, the high-income child benefit charge threshold will be raised from £50,000 to £60,000.
There were some new taxes too on vaping, business class plane tickets and holiday lets, and a new measure to abolish tax breaks for so-called non-doms who live in the UK with a permanent home overseas. It was a policy taken from the opposition benches and made the Chancellor's own.
The government will abolish the current tax system for non-doms, get rid of the outdated concept of domicile.
The Prime Minister looking pleased with a budget he's understood to have been heavily involved in.
Sir Keir Starmer.
But Labour quick to point voters back to an unprecedented tax burden set by a Tory government.
Britain in recession, the national credit card maxed out, and despite the measures today, the highest tax burden for 70 years.
Discontent from his own side too, after hopes of an income tax cut failed to materialise.
I've constantly been urging the Prime Minister to change course and be a bit more vivid and a bit bolder, and in the spirit of delivering what the British people have voted for. We're supposed to be the party of low tax, but we've overseen the highest tax burden in 70 years. And I think now was a real opportunity whereby a cut to income tax would have sent that message.
Yeah, I saw that.
Budget delivered the PM and his Chancellor straight out on a visit to a builder's merchant. The question is, have voters simply stopped listening?
Did you catch any of Jeremy's budget? No, because you were working too hard.
The message of today's modest tax cuts could prove a hard sell.
Hi, Beth.
Hi, Chancellor. Nice to see you.
Likewise.
How are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
We've just had your budget. We don't know when the general election will be, but is this your last throw of the dice?
Absolutely not. We have produced today a budget that shows that we are turning a corner. We have had a plan since the time I became Chancellor to bring down inflation and restore growth. And the changes that we've made today on national insurance, combined with what we did in the autumn, mean that we'll fill around 1 in 5 vacancies in the economy.
I will come back to the tax burden, because the OBR forecasts show that's going to be going to the highest level in 70 years by the end of the forecast. What I want to ask you now, though, is should we expect another fiscal event before a general election, or is this it?
Well, that depends when the Prime Minister decides to call the election. But whenever that is, and that is the key point. You've just talked about the tax burden, so let me just address that point. Of course, taxes have gone up because we spent over £400 billion helping families through the pandemic and through a cost of living crisis.
If you were looking for pre-election fireworks in this budget, well, look away now. Jeremy Hunt chose fiscal responsibility over political excitement. The long shadow of Liz Truss's mini-budget still looms large. What the Chancellor wants to show you is that the Tories can be trusted on the economy and they will cut your taxes. But here's the rub. The overall tax burden in our nation is still going up, and households on average are going to be worse off going into the next general election than they were the last time they went to the polls. This a budget that could well struggle to bring about political renewal. Already talk around here of another fiscal event later in the year before an autumn general election. The March budget done, but still no spring in the Tories' step. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.